because this is being elected by heavenly power. There's only one power, the highest power, that Jesus Christ has.
You guys don't have permission to record here. It's a private property, and I just have to tell you guys, I'm enjoying your singing though, and I appreciate you sharing your love of God and your love of Jesus with people.
Because we've been through this, we've seen this, we've actually seen it.
So again, you don't have permission to record here. It's a private property.
Okay.
Like they were caroling, it was like a 5-minute walk or something from the other one.
Yeah, exactly. Both in the same like downtown shopping district.
Yeah.
Which just tells you how casually they do this all the time. I'm sure this is not the first time it's happened. It's just the first time that they were caught on camera.
Yeah.
Very, very disturbing to watch.
Horrific.
Yeah.
Of course, since then, the pastor of the church has taken accountability.
Yes.
Proudly. And now him and church members and other Christians online have been attacking the shop owner.
Yes.
Hey witches, blessed new moon in Aries, and blessed eclipse. And welcome back to another episode of Spelling the HEKA-TEA with Marcus and Evan. I'm Marcus, horror author, witch, activist, and defiant homosexual.
And I'm Evan, editor, legal document specialist, witch, and lipstick lesbian.
Welcome back to our corner of the circle. If you are new here, again, welcome. If you are returning, welcome back. If you haven't yet and you like what you see here, then don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And yeah, welcome.
Welcome. We are so excited to have each and every one of you here.
Yes, I hope you
our little corner.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the Ostara episode.
Yes, and if you haven't seen it, please do go check it out.
Yeah.
We wear bunny ears. It's very cute.
Yes, it's a whole thing. Yeah, welcome. Things are getting scary.
Yes, yes they are.
Welcome to the first of a very special episode of Spelling the HEKA-TEA with Marcus and Evan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Special is a little broad of
Yes.
the term that we're using.
Think after school special, but for witches.
Yes.
Okay.
After work special? I don't know.
Yeah. We're just gonna head right into witchy news. And we only kind of have two topics, and they kind of go hand in hand.
We do.
And the second one is kind of the broader topic, which is going to be about this very special episode. So, first up, Topeka, Kansas. The Satanic Grotto is hosting an open black mass on March 28th at the State House. This, of course, is being protested by the Catholic Archdiocese of Topeka and of Kansas broader, and Catholics and Christians of various stripes and types all throughout Kansas and the rest of the United States and abroad. Catholic protesters of the Black Mass have already acquired 32,000 plus signatures, and I'm sure counting to try to stop it. The governor, who just is not actually happy about it, a Democratic governor, is not, I guess, agreeing with it, has still said, based on First Amendment rights, that, they can't stop this and it legally must proceed. Originally, it was going to be held in the State House lobby, but now it has been moved to the grounds, the state grounds. A counter-protest is organized and will be counter-protesting on the actual steps of the State House of this Black Mass. Now, a Satanic Black Mass has a lot of stuff that goes on in private.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that can be explicit. In one way or another. There's a lot of pomp and circumstance and ceremony and theatrics in the Satanic Church and Satanic Temple. A very different way than in witchcraft and Wicca and various, although, I don't know, Wicca is kind of, especially like traditional, like Gardenian, like,
that is true.
That's pretty,
Organized.
six-fold kiss and
Yes.
boobies and exposure, skyclad, male bits hanging out, all
Right.
the shit.
Male bits and all the shit.
Male bits and all the shit. I need to put that on a t-shirt.
I know, right?
And I just like spelling the HEKA-TEA with it.
Yeah.
There's so much HEKA-TEA to spell. So, yeah. Now, normally these things are private. A lot of this stuff, they're doing this in a public way. So a lot of things obviously are going to be edited out and not shown in public.
Yeah.
Now, they accept Satanists of all types and stripes, except Nazi Satanists. They say on their website, the Satanic Grotto, that Nazi Satanists can go fuck off. And we agree with that and endorse that wholeheartedly. Nazi anyone or anything can go fuck off. And yeah, I'm glad that as it stands, they're still able to put on their Black Mass. I 1,001% support the Satanic Church, Temple, Satanists in general,
Yes.
doing anything and everything that is counter-Christian. Now, of course, the Catholic Church is claiming Catholic bigotry because they say the Black Mass is a ritual mocking earnest Catholic tradition, which, I mean, it is. The Black Mass or the Black Sabbath, or Sabbath, however I see it. I don't like giving them the term Sabbath, or Sabbath, though, because that's very ours.
Yes.
Sabbath's very ours. But Sabbath, the Black Sabbath, the Black Mass. Yeah, I completely support it, 100,000%. Like, and I think that every time on government property they put up, like, you know, the 10 Commandments or some other bullshit. I love when the Satanists go and they fucking do public black masses and shit to protest it. Like, yeah, it sends a message that really, I mean, I'm sure they would have issues if people were like invoking the goddess too. I mean, they did. They just shut down that city council meeting.
Like we were talking about the other episode, which oddly was also, if I'm not mistaken, it was in Kansas, wasn't it?
It was.
Or no, Oklahoma.
It was Oklahoma. So next, kind of, I guess next door.
One of those tornado states.
Yes, Tornado Alley. No offense to those of you watching who live in Tornado Alley and in those states and suffer under that tyrannical rule of fundiness. We are very, very sorry. But yeah, totally support this.
Absolutely.
And they said, you know, it's in response to a growing rise in Christian nationalism that is sweeping the country, which is true and is happening and has been happening.
And I even think internationally.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure. Oh, it's happening, especially like in like Germany, France, the Netherlands, like Sweden even. Like there's an alt-right rising.
Yes, I think that we really need to stop this narrative that this is only happening in the U.S. because this is a global problem.
Yeah. And you know, we talked about, you know, it started in Pickens, South Carolina. And we said, you know, that there was the Harvest Mall or whatever it was called there. And it was like a bizarre antique mall vendor situation. And there's a queer Wiccan shop owner who owns a witchcraft like shop in this. I mean, it's more like a lot that you have in the space, but it's their vendor stall. And these members of this church, who again, social media clout, podcasting, TikTok clout, selling merch. Church show up and start chanting over and over again, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." And before this even happened, when Trump got elected, and I think episode 2 of our show, we, you know, very much warned that this was going to be the situation. I'm surprised at how fast it has started to happen. But it has. And then after the Pickens situation, we warned again that witchcraft metaphysical shops were going to be targeted and escalate. And it has happened again. And with Amanda, tell us more about it.
Yes. So getting into this is going to kind of delve into our main topic of the show. This was just something that we saw and we really felt like we needed to give more discussion time to because it's a really important conversation. And unfortunately, also a very disturbing and unpleasant conversation. So on March 10th in Orlando, Florida, 2 separate metaphysical shops were attacked by a Christian group called the Remnant Revival Outreach Group out of nearby Sanford, Florida. And 40 members showed up at both of these shops and began singing a hymnal type song in a threatening manner, refusing to leave the premises, because there were 2. It was Avalon Bookstore as well as Spiral Circle Books.
We have footage.
Yes, and a staff member with Spiral Circle filmed the entire attack. It has since gone viral on TikTok. So rather than delve into what exactly she showed in her video, why don't we go ahead and put it on and we will film a reaction.
Yes.
This is putting hope upon heavenly power. There's only one power, the highest power, that Jesus Christ has.
You guys don't have permission to record here. It's a private property, and I just have to tell you guys, I'm enjoying your singing though. And I appreciate you sharing your love of God and your love of just listening to people.
Because we've been through this, we've seen this, we've actually seen it.
So again, you don't have permission to record here. It's a private property. So if you could please turn off the cameras. But you guys are welcome to sing.
Okay, we're gonna leave. I just want to let you know that the blood of Jesus Christ is truly the ultimate power. He wants to save you. He loves you so much.
Thank you. I'm actually saved, believe it or not. So, but I'm not open to having a conversation. I'm here just to ask you guys to stop recording. She's still recording. Yeah. Who are you guys with? Who are you guys with?
You're with me.
Who are you?
My name is Benji.
What?
Benji.
And what organization are you with? You seem to be very proud. What?
We're sons of God.
Sure. What group are you guys with? What church? What organization?
That like they did this to 2 separate stores.
One right after the other.
Yeah, like they left one and then they went right to the other.
Yeah.
Which just tells you
like they were caroling. It was like a 5-minute walk or something from the other one.
Yeah, exactly. Both in the same like downtown shopping district.
Yeah.
Which just tells you how casually they do this all the time. I'm sure this is not the first time it's happened. It's just the first time that they were caught on camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's not finite. He's infinite.
Yeah, he's infinite.
Yeah.
So when we talk about God, who do you believe is God? Do you believe it's like Yahweh, Jehovah, Jireh? That anybody is God, like everybody basically have their own faith.
I mean, everybody is in God and of God, but they are not God. We cannot be God. Of course, yeah.
So in the Bible,
but we cannot exist outside of God because it is the creative force that animates the body, the trees, the grass that we're within.
God, so I just wanted to ask if you believe in the God of the Bible, though, right?
I believe that the God in the Bible was changed from from in the canon, and that Yahweh sat on the council of El.
Yeah.
You know, and so a lot of it changed a lot. So
it's just, I mean, like we were saying, it's just. It is really shocking how quickly it's happening and escalating.
Yeah.
I mean, across the country.
Yeah, no, it's terrible. I mean, it's just, ugh. And the guy just like advancing.
Mm-hmm. And especially like that they did this like after darkness had fallen, that just makes it so much more ominous and insidious.
Exactly.
I'm glad that the police got involved though.
Well, it took them forever to show up.
Yeah.
Which seemed purposeful, apparently.
For sure. But I mean, I'm glad that like at one, however long that it did take them, like I'm glad that the shop owners just weren't alone with the situation for
the time and nothing.
Yeah.
Or my connection to the Creator
is
less than yours.
If God is truly God and He gives us a way to worship Him, and we are the creature in order to conform the Creator, is it us, the creature, who conforms to the Creator, or is it the Creator who conforms to the creature?
It's us.
Exactly. So
but we have to be in alignment with.
Okay. Yeah. So.
Very, very disturbing to watch.
Horrific.
Yeah.
Of course, since then, the pastor of the church has taken accountability.
Yes.
Proudly. And now him and church members and other Christians online have been attacking the shop owner.
Yes.
Ever. Have a good day, sir.
Well, I just want to say the Holy Spirit is going to shut down this place. Business will not continue to flourish because this is putting yoke and bondage on the true God, the true real God, the living God, actually commands us to repent, to change.
So, okay. We're not going to keep showing more reactions or anything. This is it. Like we said, there was no way to convey this in any real way other than me figuring out how to do picture-in-picture editing.
Right. Which you did.
Video, which
Bravo.
I did. Thank you. Kudos me. So that we can watch that.
Yes.
So, yeah, you guys had to see it.
Yeah.
Clearly it's horrific.
It really is.
It's terrifying. I got chills. I mean, it's down my spine.
Because I think especially like being witches of our age group.
Yes.
Most of us growing up, we have been in that situation before.
Correct.
Yeah, and it's just
you have a story.
I do have a story. It's just and I will get into that in a second. But it's just really disappointing and angering that is still happening today.
Well, and even with more fervency because of the fact that Trump won.
Exactly.
And as soon as he won,
they were emboldened.
This is escalated. I mean, the fact that this has escalated
this quickly
to the extent that it has.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's just really given hateful people a license to be hateful. But make no mistake, that hatred was always there.
Yeah, and it's emboldened them. And
yes.
I mean, let's be clear. A lot of this also has to do with the fact that, like, they see Trump in this takeover of the government by the right, his agenda, etc. For a lot of people in the evangelical community, especially in the non-denominational Protestant Christian, etc. community, they really do believe that there finally actually are in like the final days, and they, for many millions of them, do believe that Christ is coming soon in their lifetime. And I grew up with people who would tell me, and who are still alive, and have told me ever since I was a kid, that they do believe that they will see the second coming of Christ, the return of Christ, in their lifetime. And they haven't; these people are still alive; they haven't died yet. So they still fervently are like, as long as I'm breathing, and they do now think that this is happening.
Exactly. And some of those people, who are our age, who were kids when their parents were imparting to them, now those people are having children and they're teaching their own children to hate and just continuing this very vicious cycle of hatred.
Well, and now they're in this, the whole evangelical revivalist, like the Ignite the Fire fucking contemporary shit that we see now with people like Ali Yost and Ashley Covington.
Absolutely.
And that one woman whose name escapes me, I don't want to even remember her name. That one podcaster that I talked about.
Yes.
Whoever she was. Not important.
Right. Angela Scafidi?
Angela Scafidi, or Scafidi, or Scafidi, or Scabbing. I don't know.
Scabies. I don't know.
they're this new breed that has now been empowered by social media, by the internet, by the reach and potential reach of all of it, by the ability that everyone can have a podcast now. Everyone, just like everyone can publish a book, everyone can write a book, everyone can publish a book. There's no gatekeeping anymore on like any of this stuff anymore.
No, not at all.
Clearly, literally, look what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like clearly, like
I mean, I don't think even 5 years ago we could have imagined that we would be doing this right now.
No, not at all. So now there's this whole infrastructure, which then on the right and on the Christian side of it has actual funding.
Yes.
That it just does not exist, especially for Witch Media.
God, I wish, right?
Right? Like, it just, let alone for the left in general, but certainly not for Witch Media. Like, it just, no, but they have that infrastructure on the right. On a political basis and for, like, the religious shit. And for them, of course, that mostly all goes hand in hand, and there is no division of the other. Usually, it's all one and the same. So, it's just, they have something there, and now their reach is even bigger.
Yes.
And now they're penetrating Gen Z. They penetrate Gen Z, and Gen Z is, like, the most, like, homophobic, like, the most, like, conservative generation ever. Following soon by following now by Gen Alpha, who are just as insufferable, inherently. Like,
exactly.
It's just a different thing.
As someone who is on the fertility internet, I see a lot of other content creators, mom bloggers, things like that, like talking about their motherhood journey. But I really have noticed ever since the election, it's just like, it's ramping up the amount of extreme Christianity that I see on my fertility accounts when I check, like when I'm scrolling through.
It's not good.
No.
And I think that
but that just makes me want to talk even more openly about my experience as like a witch building a family,
Well, and I think that, we have a cult of personality now. Our president is a reality star.
Exactly.
Like, the governor of California, who ended up being actually an amazing governor.
He was great.
With Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Right. The Terminator.
America is a different fucking
it really is.
beast and breed of what we've turned into, because capitalism and Christianity, Protestantism and proselytization have been hand in hand literally since the minute your ancestors stepped off the goddamn Mayflower.
Exactly.
Like, it's crazy. Like,
100%.
And so capitalism and Christianity and Protestantism and proselytization have all been an apocalypse, end times, fire, brimstone, tent revivalist belief, have all been hand in hand since literally, that day in 1620.
Right. For me, it was in middle school. I think it was 7th grade. But of course, by the time that I became a preteen, no matter what I did, I definitely was identified as a witch by my classmates. Even though I was still figuring out my own witchy journey, I was not open about it at the time, but there's something in a witch that Christians will just recognize and want to stamp out.
Yeah, no, it's true. I have noticed that. I don't know if maybe it's because we're witchy that we're just kind of outwardly weird.
Yeah,
like we're kind of weirdos.
exactly.
Or we dress differently or something. But there's always something that I feel like Christian, they got to chill down their spine. Like, they just do.
Exactly. So although I wasn't even open about my witchcraft and my witch journey at the time, I didn't even have to say anything because they knew.
Yeah.
So this one day, it's a normal day at school. I had stayed late to do some homework. I think it was my mom couldn't pick me up at her usual time because she had like a work meeting that was running late or something. She used to do work for the visitor center when I was growing up, which was really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. But once a year they would have inventory. So she would have to like stay long into the night. So she couldn't, come pick me up from school that day. So I was just going to do some homework in the library. And then I think one of my godmothers was going to pick me up like once she got off of work or something.
Yeah.
So I'm doing my homework in the library. It's about that time that I need to start heading out. So I get my book. I'm like walking down the hall. And then I see these guys from my class who apparently, they weren't in the library, but they were just there late after school as well for some other reason. I don't know. But they noticed that I was alone. And they, and they start following me down the hall. And they're like making this like circle around me, like kind of as they continue to walk. And they're like chanting, but like whispering, like witch, 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 witch. And I was very scared because, it was, no teachers were really around. It was after school hours. No one was really around. I wasn't there with anyone.
Right.
So yeah, you do, in that situation, you do think like, what's going to happen? What are they going to do to me? Now, of course, during those after school hours, there are teachers around few and far between.
Absolutely. Right.
So I think what happened was, a teacher came along and was kind of, what are you guys doing? And then of course they scrammed and I was able to get out into my godmother's car. But yeah, that situation, had that not happened at that exact right moment, which thank you, got it.
Yeah, no kidding.
That could have been very like physically a dangerous situation. And it's never something that I've ever forgotten.
Yeah, I hate when they do the circling.
The circling
when they
and
encircle you in the chanting. Like,
it's very scary, especially when you're a child.
Yeah, and you're like, it's just a vulnerability, and like for you like to be like in a place that was like essentially closed for the evening, and just have people milling in and out, and you're just essentially like on your own in this hallway, and then these kids, like it's just. And like, you feel hunted. Like you feel you are. Well, you don't feel. You are hunted. You are being hunted. And let's be clear. Like kids hunt other kids.
100%.
and there's a predator mentality.
Yes. Especially when you're, when you're a girl, a 12, 13-year-old girl being hunted by a group of boys.
Yeah.
That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
And scariness that is brought into that as well.
Yeah. I would say as a effeminate little gay boy.
Yeah, that's something
I know,
you understand.
I know very, very well what it means to be hunted by boys,
Yes.
by individual boys and by gangs of boys. Yeah, it's terrifying.
Absolutely.
So my story's kind of similar, but also not, in the sense that it has more of a mob. Well, it was a mob. So when I was, this happened when I was in 8th grade. I have hiccups. When I was in 8th grade, this would have been 1990, the 97, 98 school year is when I was in the 8th grade. I was 13. Went to school here in Tacoma at a middle school. I'm not going to name the school. But I had been openly out, and we've talked about this before. I kind of came out of I was always suspected of being a witch. I was always called a freak and a weirdo and a faggot and a sissy, blah, blah, blah. Throughout elementary school, nothing new. I was obsessed with vampires, Dracula, the Addams Family, witchcraft, I always just was always rumored to be, whether I acknowledged it or said I was or not. I was always accused of.
Yeah.
But it amplified once middle school happens, and that's just because middle school is that liminal space. It's that in between time.
You're very feral in middle school.
Perfect word.
Yeah.
Feral. Fucking feral. That is exactly it. And God, that's a perfect description of feral. And now I'm thinking about them because I went to school with an incident that I encountered, and I'm like, oh my God, no, they totally were feral beasts in those moments.
Yes,
I don't even, and a savagery that no human adult will ever have. There's just a savagery in that 11 to 13, 14 year range, that middle school range, that is just barbaric and savage and cannibalistic, and it's like a Goya painting come to life, which is savage, with all them eating flesh off babies and stuff. Oh my gosh,
imagine recreating that painting, but it's all 12-year-olds.
Oh my God. I need one of you artist witches out there to make this happen, please, in the style of Goya. So it really ramped up in 8th grade. My best friend Shelly and I met the first day of 8th grade in our first period class, and I was reading Silver Ravenwolf's To Ride a Silver Broomstick.
Of course you are.
And in the back, I was in the last seat of the row. I was at that point, modeling myself with Bonnie from the craft, but after she lost her burns, after she was healed, so in her uniform, bitch Bonnie, but
How's
still,
it going, Bonnie?
but didn't talk to anybody, and you were is he alone and depressed and sad, or is he a bitch? Maybe he's born with it. Maybe it's witchcraft. And this, you gotta remember, the craft came out when I was in 6th grade, which was the 95, 96 school year. So then,
I was in kindergarten.
Right, but that's when so many young Christian evangelical kids, you gotta remember what we've learned through Pagan Invasion and everything. This was my generation that this was all made for, these propagandist, anything not Christian is evil type shit, and Life Christian, the Life Center, Young Life coming into the schools, all these things were happening at that time. And J.D. Vance is my age, Marjorie Taylor Greene, all these people, and they were formed at this time by this kind of Christian propaganda. And for many of them, yes, they were warned about sorcery and witchcraft and Satanists and the devil as kids and in the church, but it wasn't until as teens when they saw the craft that they saw what was a very, you knew, even if you knew nothing about witchcraft, paganism, Wicca, the occult, any of it, when you watched the craft, not even when you watched it, when you saw the trailer on your TV for it, you knew it was real shit.
Yeah.
You just knew. The imagery that they were showing in the trailer, just the trailer on TV alone. I remember the first time ever seeing it was on MTV. I was watching MTV in my room, and stopped everything, and a trailer for the craft came on. Or not MTV, excuse me, Channel 13, Fox. I was watching Fox, and a trailer for the craft came on, and I got chills. I saw everything, and just the imagery alone, and what I saw, I knew there was real witchcraft being done in this movie and being represented and shown in the movie. And of course, then I saw it, did not disappoint.
No.
That I watched the craft literally in the morning before school, and then I'd come home from school, rewind my VHS, and watch it again. I would get my sketch pad and literally just sketch the girls and draw the girls and do art. I even submitted this really cool stencil pencil art I did of Bonnie, and it was shown in the school art show or whatever.
Oh my gosh,
it was
I
so
love
funny. But
I was an adult when I saw it for the first time, so I hear these stories and I'm like, that would have been so great to experience as a child.
Right. And then I had not ever thought to look up a witchcraft shop. I just had never. My mom, there was always handles around. There was things around in my house, so I never, as a kid, never really thought about it. Yeah. And then the craft showed a witchcraft shop, and I immediately looked up in the phone book in the yellow pages, occult, mysticism, whatever, and there was the Magical Garden, Magical Garden on 6th Avenue, and I get my ass there the next day after school, and it was kind of walking into Lyria's shop in the craft. It was and I had never seen anything like that before. And it was amazing. So in 8th grade, my best friend Shelly and I connect, and she's a witch too. She also came into the classroom with, I think it was To Stir a Magic Cauldron by Silver Ravenwolf. Nice. So we both were oh, and then boom. And then through me, I had met this girl, Miranda. Shelly had known Daniel. Daniel I'd had in French class the year before in 7th grade. And then we all just kind of became a unit. We were all witches. Daniel and I were both gay. And Shelly and Miranda were both gay, but Shelly was still didn't realize she was a lesbian. Like she knew, but she was just in the closet. And
yeah, I went through that.
Yeah, and Miranda was openly a lesbian, and then her and Shelly fell in love. It was a whole heavenly creatures thing. Anyway, so we were treated like the girls in the craft. Like kids, like we would walk through the hallway and they would like separate from us, and we wore uniforms in school. And we dressed like Shelly would wear Mary Janes, and Miranda would wear boots, and they would wear skirts, and then we have jewelry, and then Daniel and I would wear boots, and like we wore uniforms, and it was very much and we were always reading our witchcraft books. And Daniel, I would say anyone was like the Nancy of the group. It was Daniel, and he would sometimes antagonize the popular kids at our school, and you didn't fuck with them. And he would threaten to cast spells, and because I was also openly, by that point in 8th grade, openly a witch. Like I openly was reading my spell books all the time. On the back of my sketch pad, I had drawn this like pentacle that represented all the elements together. It was so cool. I was really proud of it. And yeah, I was just openly a witch and openly spooky. And we were always like, we were picked on, we were called names, but then there was this one day, and I'm pretty sure it was before class started. School started in the morning, but it could have also been blurry on the timeline, or it might have been later in the day. There was a fire drill. But either way, we were outside, and there was at the entrance of the school where a lot of people were dropped off and picked up, was this like triangular garden, rock wall garden thing, and then it had a big tree planted in it, blah, blah, blah. And every morning before school, that's where the 4 of us would meet, and we would just hang out there until class started. And if there was a fire drill or anything that had us leave, we would always just end up meeting up there, and then going back with our classes when it was time to go back to the classroom. So we did that one day, and we were looking at I think we were looking at a spell book or something, but we were looking at something occultish. And the next thing you know, like all the kids, all the students, and a few of the teachers who were out, so it must have been during a fire drill, because there were a few teachers out, but they like gathered around us, and they started accusing us of being witches, and they started being like, witches get killed, right? Like they hang witches, that, right? Like, and it got really like scary, like it got scary, and you're looking around, and the staff's not doing anything, and luckily, we were called back to class, but they had started we were trying to move, and they would like kind of push us back, and it was terrifying. You suddenly like this mob mentality has taken over, and you realize that like the people who are supposed to help you and protect you also think you're a freaking weirdo, and so they're not going to. And a lot of teachers were homophobic. A lot of them were witch phobic. They didn't want to help, and there was often that we would go report things to the office, and literally the principal, vice principal, whatever, they would literally do nothing. We would actually then sometimes get the detention for being the agitators. So one day it culminated with it was like after school, and I was leaving for the day, and there was this girl, and she was like getting like picked on by this guy, by these boys, and a couple of these girls, and she was like a 6th grader. So I went, and I had a Buffy moment. And I like completely like ran in and like jumped, like air flew kicked and knocked this kid off, and like your boy was a slayer, and still is. And
that's just when you wear your jewelry, right?
Right. And I was like all about, like, I was like saving this girl, and like, and she also lived in my neighborhood. She lived like 2 blocks up from me. Like, she was nice. Like, she was and she was getting picked on, and so I intervened. Nothing really escalated from it, but they threatened they would get back at me.
Yeah.
So literally, like towards the second half of the day, I suddenly get called out to the hallway by the security officer, who was part of Young Life or Life Center. He was a Young Life. I think he was a Young Life. Him and another teacher were the Young Life like reps in the coordinators in the school.
Oh wow!
And he was like, he was all together and like down with like all the cool kids, all the bros, and like they all loved him. And I was always nice to him, and he would pick on me like all the time. Like, he would pick on me. So I come out, and he's like, "I need you to open your locker." And I'm like, "Why?" And he's like, "Kids are saying that you are threatening to cast spells on them. That yesterday, like after school, you had threatened this one girl's sister and her brother, because 2 of the bullies were brother and sister, and their older sister was in one of my classes." And they're like, they say that you're threatening to cast spells, that you've been threatening to cast spells, that you're a witch, and that you've sold your soul to the devil, like all these things I've never
like to say that in school.
I'm like standing there out in this hallway, and he's like leaning into me, and here's like my locker door, and this hallway was like horribly lit, so it was like really dark all the time, so it added to like this creepiness. And then he's like, "Open your locker," and I like refused, so he got a crowbar and he busted it open, and he finds one of my witchcraft books, and then he finds my sketch pad with the pentacle that I drew on the back of it, and he's like, I just remember him being like, "A pentagram, Marcus," and he'd flip it upside down on purpose, and then I'd be like, and I would grab it and be like, "No, a pentacle, no, it's not satanic." He's like, "This is devil shit, this is devil stuff, this is satanic," and I'm like, "No, this isn't satanic." It became this whole thing where then like we had to go and contact like advice from an attorney and get this like information, like me and Shelly, like my best friend, like we went and got like advice from an attorney and got like this like written up thing on like, it was like the Supreme Court's decision to recognize paganism / Wicca as a religion, and it was like the U.S. military versus the Church of Wicca or some shit like that, and it was the groundbreak landmark. I was trying to say like groundbreaking landmark, and I ended up saying groundmark. The landmark case, which was groundbreaking in making Wicca paganism actual official recognized tax-exempt religion, which means that if you are in the military, you can't discriminate against for it. You're allowed to wear your pentacle. You can now get a lot of social workers have dog tags that have pentagrams on them and stuff. Like, yeah, it's really interesting. So, I mean, fuck the military-industrial complex,
right? But if you're gonna
at least you can be an open pagan witch, whatever.
Exactly.
So we had to like go in and present like a case to the principal and be like, this is discrimination. Like, you can't be treating me this way. It was like, we had to like, it was like fucking 20, 30 pages long. Like, and my handwriting was terrible. Shelly's wasn't as bad, so she wrote it all out. Like, it was just crazy and like, but it was scary. And I've had other instances throughout my life growing up where being a witch has been not always easy.
Yeah.
But that would be the most I'd ever experienced like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And like that video. And I'm sure you guys out there watching have same stories. I'm sure similar situations, experiences.
I just think every witch has a story like this.
Yeah,
you know?
Especially like our age and older. Like but what does this entail? Like, what are we seeing? So we're seeing a growing rise in this abrasive Christian nationalism and this desire to purge witches, to drive out the wolves, which is a code we talked in the last episode. Is coded language used by Christians in these communities to chase the wolves out. Is they refer to witches, occultists, LGBTQ people, and abortion supporters as the wolves in the neighborhood, in the community. And I think this is way more coordinated and organized than we realize, because even though the Pickens thing, and maybe the thing in Pickens inspired this other remnant church to do this in Florida, or maybe it was more insidiously connected where they're communicating and organizing, saying, we're doing it on this day, this weekend, this day, you guys do it on this. Yeah, because churches do communicate and talk to each other, and pastors all over the country.
I mean, they are in such similar areas of the country, like separated by just one state.
Yeah.
You know? And lots of organizations, especially in the South, are like that. Like, so interconnected. Like,
and then you have so many that are chains too. Like Christ the King, which is like a prominent strip mall church. Like, there are a lot Hillsong.
Yeah.
Hillsong affiliates are all like they're chains. So apparently this remnant revivalist whatever people apparently sell merch. They are doing this for likes, follows, cash. Just shows that once again there is a thread of capitalism running through all of this and everything that they do. Because I mean, think about like Jim Baker and all the TBN and CBN and all the church, call the prayer line and pledge $500 for a prayer, and in exchange you'll get this gold-plated angel bookmark for your Bible for $500 pledge and a prayer. Like, it's grifting. All it is grifting all the time. It's a grift. Do I think that they believe? Do I think they're true believers in all this? Yes. But again, capitalism and exploitation and industrialization and industrialism and fucking Christian conservative Protestant patriotism have all been linked together from the minute your ancestors stepped off the goddamn Mayflower. Like, that
is the truth.
It's been the seed of everything, and as a result, it can't be separated. It cannot be separated. Now, yes, there are pious religious people out there in the Christian faith, in the Abrahamic faith, who are not greedy, who live a very, very pious and very, very frugal and very giving life.
Yes.
We will not take away from those people.
No.
But by and large, and especially in evangelicism and non-denominational Protestant tent revivalist American Christianity, it all is hand in hand. And so they're making money off of terrorizing the pagan witchcraft occult community.
Exactly.
Like,
I mean,
profiting.
I think
going viral.
I think how I think of it a lot of the time is there are individual Christians who are lovely people.
Yes.
I know many of them. I love many of them. However, as a group, Christianity has never been about anything but stamping out pagans.
Yeah. Anything and anyone and any belief that doesn't conform. And paganism has the pagans and the old ones, the deathless ones, the ancient gods, the first, have been their target, their never-ending war from day one. And we're seeing it now. And it's only going to get worse. Like, let's just be clear what we're seeing here. This is escalating. It is ramping up. And if you live in the United States, you live in a vast country. Yeah. So sometimes it takes a beat or two for it to reach your door.
Right.
But it will reach your door. Local churches, local communities in your place eventually will start doing this. You have, a congregation, I don't know if it's the same one, but they shut down a Botanica.
Yeah.
Like, and again, it was very similar chance of thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. What is going on here? Like, what is going on here is real and it is serious. And witches, you got to take a shift here.
Yeah.
We need to realize that we have to stop, and again, not to take from it, but we have to stop this narrative. It wasn't a war on witches, it was a war on women. No, it was a war on witches. It was not a war on women. Cats, dogs, birds, someone's entire livestock were put to death because they were believed to be witchcraft in many places. There were villages where the only people killed were men, or the majority were men, or in some places the adult women and men were fine, and it was all the children in the village, boys and girls, that were put down for witchcraft. The hunt was witches.
Yes.
Before the Malleus Maleficarum, most people tried and put to death, jailed, whatever, persecuted, prosecuted for witchcraft and heresy were male practitioners of magic. It changed with the Malleus Maleficarum because you had two men who were hung up on their own, like, sex issues.
Right.
And they're, like, their own fucking incel bullshit. That if you read the Malleus, they still acknowledge men and boys are witches.
Right.
What they say is that women, being from the sin of Eve, that they are more susceptible to the temptations and the seductions of the devil. So, like, be especially wary of women because there is more of a likelihood that when you are dealing with a woman that basically you find attractive or feel sympathy for, essentially, that she may be a witch. But it wasn't, just get rid of all the women and it's women and women and women. No, it was still witches. It's also the Malleus talked about all the cats and dogs that were eradicated. Like, it was just as much a genocide on fucking animals.
Exactly.
Like, and why? Because there's a whole section in the Malleus Maleficarum that's almost as long about blaming women that is about animals and how to identify that animals can be witches and how to identify if an animal is really an imp, really a familiar, really a witch in disguise. Like, there was a lot of things going on there. We need to stop with this, like, narrative that it was this or that. It was a hunt. It was a war on witches and witchcraft and the devil.
Yes.
And what they perceived to be all of these things. So males back in the day, homosexuals especially, witches were bad enough. Back in the day, witches were bad enough. That was willingly signing your soul over the devil.
Right.
Which is what Christians still think now, is what you're doing. And being a witch is bad enough. But, and the idea still persists now amongst many of them too. Back then though, if you were a male or a woman, but there's only a few cases of like lesbianism for women, but with the men, again, as we said before, there was only really two ways that you were condemned a witch. Well, three. You were like the curmudgeon old asshole up on the hill, old man with a crooked stick, and everyone was like, fuck you, old man. You're like, get off my lawn. And so they're like, witch, because they want your farm and they want to get rid of you and your crotch. Or your wife, your daughter, your sister, or whatever, was accused of witchcraft, so then therefore by default, you are too. The third, as we talked about, is homosexuality. Homosexuality. Put your dick in my butt. Homosexuality. And that was actually called demonism. Demonism, I mean, I think we can all kind of guess what demonism would mean,
right.
But just to be clear, it basically means you are a demon. There is no salvation for you, even in death. We talked about before, you will go down to hell. They believe you're just going to go back to hell and be like, sorry, boss, I failed. There was no salvation for you. If you were a sodomite, if you were homosexual, there was no salvation because you were a demon. And this persists to this day, where they see the practice of witchcraft as selling your soul to the devil, willingly working in league with the devil. But a lot of evangelists, Protestant, fundamentalists, right-wingers believe that homosexuality isn't just a sin, but that many are possessed, as I have been told many a time, possessed by the demon of homosexuality. That we are willingly taken over by a demon, that we are a demon and a danger. Like, they believe that then too, and they killed for it.
Yeah.
That is how it has been. And we need to get past this whole war on women thing. It wasn't a war on women. It was a war on witches. A war that is still fucking raging.
If anything, women were a casualty of the war, but there were other casualties as
Correct.
well. And the target of the war is, and will always be witches and demons.
Yes, they're not going to these witchcraft shops to protest women, to attack women. Remember, in Pickens, South Carolina, the first account of this happening this year, it was a male witchcraft vendor, Wiccan vendor, who is gay, a gay male Wiccan witch vendor. Like, it's not women, it is witchcraft, it is metaphysical, they will tell you, most of your biggest Bible thumpers, your biggest people leading the charge on chasing out the wolves are Christian women who they see themselves as the real backbone of America, of patriotism, and of Christianity. You know, we watched one person who was commenting and reviewing this video. She made a statement basically saying, like, how did these women allow themselves to be convinced by their men to be dragged out here to protest Spiral Circle books? Because she saw so many women out in the crowd singing Altar on the Fire of the Lord. They didn't have to be dragged or convinced. If anything, they're the ones who told their husbands, told their fathers, told their brothers that they should go protest these stores. And yes, that is how it works. We have to stop writing this victimization too. Exactly. That women are victimized by men into doing these things. That other certain people are somehow victimized into these bigoted acts. No, 9 times out of 10, they're the ones coming up with the idea to do it. They're spearheading it. Like, they're in charge of it. And most of the time, it is women. It is evangelical Christian women who are usually the ones spearheading any of these organized protest attacks. Or they're the most fervent ones in the crowd. Yes. The most bloodthirsty that you'll see in the crowd half the time. Like, so we have to stop this narrative. We just have to.
As I think, firstly, it really undermines legitimate cases where women are put under by men in their lives.
Correct.
If we assign that label to the situation that is not that, it's less believable when it happens for real.
Yeah. Well, then there's too many, there's just too much of this narrative that is rewriting and has rewritten the totality of the witch trials.
Yes.
And what the focus was. Because if you were to go back in the past and say to any of them, like, why are you hunting women? Like, why are you have this war on women? They will turn to their wife and be like, or to their neighbor's wife and be like, we have not gone after Goody Sampson. Like, they're like, we're not hunting. They'd be like, we're not hunting women. We're hunting witches. We've got children in here. We just killed 5 dogs and 3 cats yesterday. Like, demons that were pretending to be dogs and cats we killed. We've got, like, Farmer John and all of his sons over there in that cell. Like, they would tell you it wasn't a war on women. It was a war on witches. They were and still are trying to eradicate witches. And just to break this down for you so you can understand, you go all the way back to the beginning, right? You had Christians and Jews fighting amongst themselves. You have the Jewish establishment fighting with the new Christian sect and cult, where you had the historic Jesus, who was basically any other guru, hippie dude, who had this offshoot of Judaism that was his own religion, and he said, I am the Messiah. I am the Christ. I am the coming. And the established Jewish kingdom and authority said, no, you are not. You are not the king of the Jews. You are not the Messiah. You are not the second coming. Sorry, bro. We don't own that. From there, Christianity, the cult of Christianity was born in its early stages, and there were many facets of it, a lot of which involved Christian witchcraft, Christian mysticism, Christian magic, drawn from Jewish Hermetic and Kabbalistic.
Which still holds present to this day.
Exactly. And then, famously, Constantine comes into power, converts shortly thereafter in his rule to Christianity on the battlefield, as we've talked about on the show before, and he then makes Christianity the official religion, and then what ends up happening? Christians start becoming mainstream, start gaining power. Now, during the reign of Constantine, everything was whatever. And pagans and Christians, they were still living side by side.
Right.
But then Theodosius came into power in the 5th century, or 4th century, or 5th century, because Constantine was the 4th century.
Right.
Theodosius comes into power, and then he makes not only that Christianity is the official religion, but then he outlaws paganism.
Yes.
And therefore, that is when then the church, now in full power in Rome, sends out their soldiers. You gotta remember, the Vatican, Rome, the church, it was all in hand, and they directed the military. That is how that shit went. They go out, and that's when they start destroying the temples. That's when it then turns on the pagans, right? Speed up. We get to the Crusades. You know, like the Crusades, but that was Christians versus Islam, Christians versus Muslims. Yes, but why? Why? Because they saw it was a fight for control of the Holy Land. Yes, but from who? From Islam, from the Muslim Turks. Who? What? They believed, actually worshipped the devil. And it was a religion full of spirits, mysticism, demons, the jinn, and that Allah was actually Satan. That's what they believed. And vice versa. The Muslims saw Christianity as a thing that was black, it was evil. Like, it was the same. But the Crusades, that's what that was. Yes, they weren't hunting witches. There was the Muslim Turks, it was Islam, and the fight for Christendom and the fight for the Holy Land. But it's because they saw Islam as being ruled by heresy and the devil and magic and demons. Like, and then you go from the Crusades, right? And we get to the Inquisition, which the Spanish Inquisition was all about hunting out and chasing out heretics, blasphemers, witches, sodomites, demons, homosexuals, anything that was corrupt and impure to the church and to Christendom had to be stamped out. And why? They saw those people as committing sins, committing allegiance to the devil. It was still a war. You go back and you look at the language of the doctrine of the Inquisition, and it was all still about getting rid of the devil, eradicating sin. Like, and they did it through some grotesque, torturous, god-awful fucking ways, which many of us have actually been able to kind of see in hand how they would work in real life thanks to all the Saw movies and the Hostel movies. Like, a lot of those devices came straight out from the Spanish Inquisition. Like, it's terrifying. So kudos, Saw. Yay, James Wan, good for you. And then we go from there to the Burning Times, to the witch hunts. And it was witch hunts. It was not women hunts. It wasn't men hunts. It wasn't teen boy, teen girl hunts. It wasn't little boy, little girl hunts. It wasn't cat hunts, dog hunts, frog hunts, rabbit hunts, wolf hunts. Because werewolves. They were also hunting werewolves and vampires at this time, too. And we leave that out of the narrative when we talk about the Burning Times, and because of this feminist recentering that happened with not even Wicca. Because Wicca wasn't feminist.
No.
When it gets to America and the feminist women's movement, second wave feminism picks up Wicca and then creates goddess-only covens and churches and create Dianican Wiccan. And but Wicca, witchcraft, paganism, neo-paganism also did not start out gender-centric.
No.
It was heterocentric. It was a god and a goddess. Like, the Lord and the Lady, the Great Rite, the Chalice and the Athame, the Chalice and the Blade. Like, which, again, we'll get into all of that fucking shit in a later special episode, another special episode. This one's about the truth about witch hunts and the modern witch hunts that we're having now. It was a war on witches. Now we move forward, we get to America, okay? You look at slavery. It was so many references to voodoo, to the spirits and to the gods and deities and ancestors of Africa and the drums and the beats and the magic of the African diaspora, right? You go over, and You look at the genocide of the Native Americans, right? What do they talk about? What do they talk about when the settlers, the colonizers come and they talk about the native tribes? What do they often talk about? And when you see it later in like Trail of Tears, and when you see it in, you know, with Custard and in the Wild West and that whole situation, and what do they talk about? They talk about their scary Indian magic, their spirit talking, their spirit dancing, their rain dancing, their magic, their devils. They worship devils. Christianity, from literally its start, has been at a war with witches, witchcraft, and pagans, and pagan gods, and paganism, because they fully believe that the pagan gods existed. They still really do. They just think that they're demons. They believe in our deities. The Christian, my fundamentalist grandfather, does believe that our deities exist. He just believes that they're actually demons, and that we're worshiping demons. We're working for the devil. But they firmly believe and have always believed in the existence of our powers and of our forces, it's just where they believe that comes from. And so we have to stop this war on women, not on witches narrative, because it was not, it's reversed. It was a war on witches, not on women. It was a war, and it still is a war on witches.
As we're seeing now.
Yes.
It's indiscriminate of gender.
Correct. And so what does all of this mean? We're seeing this. What does this mean? What do we do? What can we do? I mean, we're going to get more into it in SpellCraft next, but it's time to witch up.
Absolutely. We were just talking earlier when we watched the video about what if the shop owners had come out and began to invoke.
Right.
I think that interaction would have gone very differently than the way it did, which was that she was kind of trying to just engage them in conversation and get them to leave. But the whole time I was watching it, I was wondering what if she had taken a stronger approach,
right.
You know?
Like stepping outside, and prime example, stepping outside and maybe being, you know, you start chanting, you know, over and over again, repeating, you know, Mother of Witches, Queen of Ghosts, Keeper of Hell's Keys, Bringer of Storms, Goddess HEKA-TEA, heed our call, over and over again. Or Darksome Night and Shining Moon, Brightest Day or Greyest Gloom, Hell's Dark Mistress, Heaven's Queen, HEKA-TEA, HEKA-TEA. Like, right. You just start invoking, chanting, casting spells in front of them. Instead of coming out and trying to reason with them, talk with them, you fucking call the police, and then you witch up, and you walk out there, and you start chanting, all of you. And then one of you, with the rest of you chanting behind, countering their fucking singing and their hymnal revivalist fucking torching pitchfork bullshit. You then say, we've called the police, just so you know, and they're coming. And then you go back to chanting over and over and over again. You do not relent. You do not stop. And you lean into the full force of the dark side of the goddess. You lean into the rage, the power, the generational witchcraft trauma that we all have. Because let's face it, all of us know. I haven't met a fucking witch alive who hasn't said, I know that I also was a witch in my past life. I know that in every life I've lived, I have been a witch.
Yes.
And we carry that with us. And who knows, maybe it's not that we have been, maybe it's pieces of our line that carries with us. Because I have witches in my line. I have natural witches now in my family, as we would call back in our day a natural witch. Yes. Or as I will say, someone who's magically inclined naturally, magically inclined persons. NMPs, naturally NMIPs, yeah, I like NMPs better. Naturally magically inclined people. We're gonna leave out the I.
Couldn't we just do magically inclined people? Because then we could call it a MIP.
But see, if you're magically, you could just be magically inclined, but you're not naturally.
Wow, yeah.
Like, you're just like, you feel called to pick up witchcraft. Well, then maybe you would. Anyway, whatever.
I'm just trying to get a fun, like, acronym.
A fun little acronym going. We'll work on it. Comment with your suggestions, please. A little razzle dazzle there. But you have, you know, this situation with, you know, naturally magically inclined persons in my family. I have a long line of witches in my family, and it goes way back, like way back. And you know, there are also people in my family who are not, and who do not practice. But yeah, and my line goes back and historical. So and so maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's pieces of that we're feeling. But either way, there's generational witch trauma that we all feel and know. Not to mention whatever we gain here in this life. And it's time to let that fuel your rage.
Exactly.
It is time to invoke the dark ones. I'm sorry. It is time to witch up and fight back. We can't reason with them. There's no reasoning with these fucking people.
No, there really
They want to sing altar on the fire of the Lord while burning us alive.
Exactly.
And
well, there's a fire on our altar too.
Yeah, and we know how to use it. Like, and we know fires aren't just for burning.
Exactly.
Like, we have the secrets as witches to all the mundane things in people's lives and their bodies and their households that we know how to activate magically. That we know the magical properties of. And you watch someone eat a bunch of fries and it's covered in salt and pepper. And you're like, they got pepper in their body now. You know the magical properties of pepper. Use your energy. Use your witchcraft to fucking activate the magical properties of that fucking salt and pepper, for fuck's sake. You know what I mean? Like, it's time we need to start defensive and offensive training in our witchcraft.
Absolutely.
And in our spell work. And honestly, witches, it's time to start focusing on using your witchcraft without to always the aid of the tools. Like, for example, Franny's Magical Garden, and I think I have told this story before, I think, but maybe not, so I'll tell it again. But Franny, she had moved beyond, like, she had an altar in her shop, sure, like, but Franny, she could look at you and bind you. She could look at you and cast a spell on you. And she really instilled in me, when I was 12, 13 years old, the need to learn to tap into my witchcraft in the moment. Like, you have to be able to fucking use your magic right then and there to shield yourself or to fight back and send things away. And that includes also maybe not just defensive magic, but also offensive magic. Maybe it is time to be like, oh, okay, you're going to come at us?
We're going to come at you.
And
we got the power to do so bow down.
We're going to show you.
And with that is what we're going to be discussing in SpellCraft.
So, obviously, back with SpellCraft. Little darker out, so lighting has changed.
Yes.
Before we get into SpellCraft, though, I did want to say back just really quick one more thing on the last subject. I kind of came with an idea that I honestly wish, and I think someone out there needs to make happen. But when we were talking about like how to go out and like counter protest these churches that are attacking these stores, I imagine, like I said, what if like witches organize some kind of like choir, some protest choir that like puts on, you know, capes and conical hats and grabs their brooms and goes and sing the Ballad of the Witches' Road, like just like as loud as possible, like over their own Christian hymnal, like singing and like chanting of "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live," blah blah blah. Like, just imagine, like, you know, 20, 30 like people all dressed in their witch finery, like between shop owners and like scary Christian people, just this wall of love and light and dark power, singing the Ballad of the Witches' Road just over and over again. As soon as they get done singing it, they start up again and just sing it over and over again and just get louder and louder. Just drown out the Christians until the police show up. Like, especially in a lot of these cases, since the police are showing up a lot of times super late in the game, like on purpose, after the congregates disposed. So imagine having that kind of like added like like protest and like beauty all in one. Like, So anyway, final thought on that. So now we're getting into SpellCraft, and we talked about defensive spells. We talked about spells to get back at these Christians and to kind of start fighting fire with fire. And to do that, we turned to the annals of my bookshelf.
Yes.
For an older book, this is about 54 years old when this came out, Witchcraft and Demonology. It's very direct, by Paul Husson, who also has a book called Mastering Witchcraft. And I love this book. I had this book when I was 13. It came in different colors.
Oh, really?
So it had like a jacket, like a dust jacket, but under it was this, right?
Cool.
And it's got this. It's really hard to see, but there's just like it's an embossed sacred circle symbol, and it's got a triangle and a sacred circle with magical text, and it's hard to see. There's a crowd of men, clearly inebriated and bitching outside down on the sidewalk. Yes. So that's what that was. So forget that. But the copy I had was red. And it was like a maroon, the one I had. And this girl I went to school with, I loaned it to her. This was in 8th grade. She loaned it to somebody else.
Oh, no.
And I never got it back.
Oh.
But I had because I always hex my shit from theft. So I hexed it so that if anyone ever took it, it would just like fall apart. And that's exactly what happened. Yeah. Like, once this chick stole the book and refused to give it back, and finally told me she wasn't going to give it back, like, it fell apart very quickly and like just became useless to her. So, boop. But I found it again. It found me again years and years ago. On a bookshelf, and now I have it. So we're going to go to a great spell in here. We will tweak it a little bit here with some suggestions, but it's called the Sending of 8. I know it sounds so ominous, doesn't it? It already sounds a little. Yeah, it already sounds a little seekest out the road to all that's foul and fair, because it is. This is when witchcraft gets fun. So, this spell dates back to medieval times. It makes use of sending out what they would call then devils, or more accurately, thou hast a familiar spirit, or 8 of them. You can also, if you are one of those witches who you're like, all forces they're not like entities, deities, they're like energy, moods. I don't know what you guys would rationalize it to me as. I don't get it. But then you would look at this as like 8 different daggers of witchcraft, of magical power that you're sending in this direction, each with a different purpose. But historically, it is you, the witch, reaching into the ethereal, into the ether, and summoning 8 familiar spirits to do thy bidding. Now, they're going to have some appellations or pronunciations of things like Devour-ators, which just means devourers, but it's pronounced Devour-ators, and seducer. They should not be thought of as constituting independently existing entities if you, again, don't want them to, but essentially, again, you're summoning 8 familiar spirits. But you can also see this as rather as the witch's objectified desires, small scintillations of magical fire formulated by your visualization and manifestation and sent out to accomplish your disenchantment. So here's the method. So we're going to put this in context of, yes, if you know the individual pastors, congregates of, let's say, some church or whatever, if you find yourself in this type of situation, then obviously go to Kinko's or home if you have a printer, print out the pictures of these individuals from their Instagram, from their Facebook, their TikTok, get their name. You don't want to do that. If for whatever reason you can't, and let's say it's just like this situation in Florida with this Remnant Revivalist Center or whatever, just literally go Google Maps or Google Street View, Google Images, and just print off a picture of the church. And then a picture of yourself, or in this case could be the picture of your witchcraft shop. And within a properly cast circle on the waning moon, should be written their respective names with pen and ink of art. So I'm just assuming with pen and ink of art. I'm not really sure. I'm assuming paint, like maybe like paint. Just a pen, maybe fancy calligraphy ink. It doesn't matter. Just a pen. This can be tweaked. We all know witchcraft can be tweaked. That's the whole point. It is a living art. It is a living science. Witchcraft evolves, it moves, it transitions, it transforms, just like our deities and their practices and the way we honor them evolves and transforms over time. So once you've done that, name them with fire and water. I'm not really sure what I would say. I would say, if anything, just name them with fire and water. So I would say you could do that as like dipping into water and like sprinkling like on the picture and say their names or say the name of the church and then bless with fire. Because you're not going to burn this, so don't think that's what that means. You pass it through like a smoke, pass it over, and do all this. Name them with fire and water. Historically, 3 times 6, 9, like 12, 13. That's how many times you want to do it. 7, another one. Then exhibiting them likewise to the 4 corners. So thus identifying the photographs firmly within their owners, with their owners in your magical imagination. So you're going to hold it in your hand, and you're going to show it to the 4 corners. You're going to direct it to the 4 corners. And each time you do it, you're going to picture them, the congregation, whoever or whatever it is that this is for, that you are getting some justice on. You're just going to turn to the corners, hold up the photograph, show it to the watchtowers, and just make sure that you have that all firmly set. So basically, it's like no matter how far or wide you hide on this earth, in what direction, you will be found, is basically what you're doing. Now, once you've done this, proceed to glue the photographs together. So you're going to glue the photograph of you or your business, whatever, with these people. If it's multiple people and you're going that route because you got actual names, then obviously you're going to print out several pictures of yourself. So make them cute, but you're going to glue them all together, back to back. So obviously you do not want them facing each other, back of the picture, back to back. Now move to the south side of your altar table, facing north across it, and place a small amount of sulfur powder or asafoetida gum on the hot coals in your cauldron, basically. So you want it, so basically your cauldron, pot, whatever, you want to have some hot coals going in there. Hold the photograph in the smoke with your right hand and press the athame blade point held in your left against them. Chant the congregation as you speak each of the 8 names down your magical weapon into the photograph. So you're going to basically stab it, but don't actually stab it. You're going to down it. You're going to do the pause, the ceremonial pause. If you are familiar with doing ceremonial Wiccan chalice, great rite, athame shit, there's like a pause that happens. So that's what you're going to do every single time. And and then I would chant again, your comfortability, but 3, 6, 9, 7, 12, 13, ideal chanting numbers. You're going to chant, and then imagine a bolt of your witch power flashing down through your blade into the photographs. And then you will chant, Soignator, Usor, Dilapidator, Dentor, Concisor, Devourator, Seductor, Et Seminator. You who sow discord, where are you? You who infuse hate and propagate enmities. Which, pause break, tell us, what does enmities mean?
Enmity is the feeling or state of being actively opposed or hostile to someone or something.
I direct, conjure, and constrain you by the Dark One and her horned consort. So right here, Dark One, historically, this would be in reference, especially if this is a medieval times spell, this would be in reference to HEKA-TEA. And this is when we start seeing HEKA-TEA being referenced in more Christian-based Thelemic magics, where she's being referred to now as the Dark One, the Queen of Hell, the Queen of Night, Queen of Witches. This is kind of when HEKA-TEA really totally loses any and all of her fertility aspects and her supreme mother goddess aspects and becomes just this secret goddess of witches. So by the Dark One and her horned consort, as the face of one image be set contrary to the other, so let the face of, and then you would say yourself, or your business, whatever, be set contrary to the face or faces of, and then either the church organization that came and harassed and attacked you, or the name, if you have actual names, because you that witch, that's when you're going to list them all off.
Okay, so similarly, when you arrive at the section about setting the face of one contrary to the other, actually see the quarrels and upsets in your fortified witchy imagination.
Imagine, like, some people are getting really intense and really fundamentalist, and they're starting to impose and make shit scared. Like, whatever. You are sowing discord, disdain. So imagine them eating themselves alive. Because that's really what you want. The ultimate punch is you want them to eat themselves alive. You don't want any outside. Let them ruin themselves.
Exactly. As they historically often have.
Yeah.
It could not be otherwise, must be your attitude here.
Yeah.
As is the adage in witchcraft, so it is,
so it shall be,
mm-hmm.
so mote it be. Yes, there is no otherwise. This is how it has to be. This is where it is. There is no other outcome.
So finally, you're going to bury the photographs in the earth, or just wherever you have access to a place to do so, for 24 hours, and then dig them up the following night, chanting these words. They're going to be the same words from the first portion of the spell, chanting those words softly as you do. So swing nature, user, dilapidator, dentor, concisor, devourator, seductor, et seminator. You who sow discord, where are you? You who infuse hate and propagate enmities. I direct, conjure, and constrain you. By the dark one and her horned consort, go, accomplish that which is commanded of you. And seal with so mote it be, and the left-handed triple cross to complete the spell. You must now somehow contrive that the photographs pass into the victim's possession. So if you do know the person, pay them a little visit. If you are just texting a church, go visit that church on a Sunday. Leave it in the little slot in front of your pew. Leave it in the bathroom. As a last resort, you can bury the symbol under their threshold or on their property. And this is all of the traditional method of accomplishing and completing the spell.
And you're like, oh, what? Well, how easy is this? Because they're like, how to bury it on the property? Well, usually there's a road and a sidewalk, right? Mm-hmm. But what's between the road and the sidewalk?
The alley.
There's the patch of grass usually.
Oh yeah.
Like patch of grass between the road and the sidewalk. It's like a patch of grass. That belongs to the property owner. Mm-hmm. That doesn't belong to your town or city. That, just like that chunk of the sidewalk, actually is the responsibility of the property owner if something happens to it, to repair it. It's actually really fucked up because most people can't afford to repair sidewalks, and it should be something that a city or a town is in charge of. But I digress, because in the working of the sending of 8, you are lucking out with the fact that they're responsible for that property. Because no one's ever going to pay attention over there, especially if you do this, like, middle of the day or in the evening on, like, a Monday or a Tuesday. That's true. Like, no one's that's usually when it's totally just empty. Just literally, you can bury it right there. Right. Bury it right there. There's some dirt. Just dig it up, put it in there. Like, easy peasy. Like, and then walk away.
That's
so,
true.
Again, we're not saying do this willy-nilly. Look, you are free to cast and conjure and send forth whatever and however you want to. We don't control anything.
No.
But we're purposely sharing this for the point of if you are experiencing what you've seen in this video, is what we're referring to.
Yes. No, this is not just like, there's a church down the road from my house, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, no, this is like what we've seen in the video, and clearly law enforcement isn't going to do anything about it, and this is continuing. And familiars, we have them for a reason, and witches don't work with them nearly enough.
That's true.
And we don't have familiars just in the physical world that come to us. We also have familiar spirits, and they're waiting to be used by us. Like, I think we get so stuck in, like, ancestor spirits and ancestors and, spirit guides. And if you are a witch, and you know inherently deep down you're a witch, and you've always known you're a witch, then, honey, you are surrounded by familiar spirits. Send them. Use them. Mm-hmm. That's what they're there for. Yes, they give advice, but they're not here to advise you. No. They're here to do thy bidding. So send them forth and let them work for you. Go on to a somewhat related subject, now that we're done with SpellCraft. We're a regular episode, kind of. This was a very special episode of, but still kind of, we are still basically more normal than our specials. So once again, everybody, we are returning to the Crystal Heavens to fly to the Crystal Palace to join Carol Patriciana and Chuck Smith Sr. on the throne of paganism and despair for another intriguing episode of Pagan Invasion. This one was the evolutionary hoax, or the evolution.
Was it evolution, the biggest hoax of the century? ?
Yes, evolution, the biggest hoax of the century? ? Yeah, okay. So,
where do you even begin with that?
As you can guess, they talked to a lot of creationist scientists.
Yes.
They did talk with biologists, genealogists, anthropologists, geologists, who do support evolution. They, of course, said, now granted, this did come out in 1991, but even then, the scientific community was pretty much agreed on evolution.
Right. I mean, I was born in 1990, and I never recall evolution not being a fact in school.
Yeah, no. And I mean, literally, in 1993, Jurassic Park came out.
Right.
And in Jurassic Park is where most of us learned what paleontologists have known for a while, which is that dinosaurs, or that birds evolved from dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Obviously, lizards, reptiles, like, have their relation to that time period, too. And we know alligators and crocodiles have just always been around, much bigger. Now they're smaller than what they were, but they've always been around. Again, evolution. And a lot of things became smaller. There was not a de-evolutionization in a real sense, but it was like almost in like a height sense.
Yeah.
Like, things got smaller, other things got wings and flew away. But scientific community has always been pretty much like, we're agreed on this.
Right.
I was born in 84, and my entire life, evolution has been pretty much, we're agreed.
Yeah.
So, obviously, they're purporting creationism. Now, I will give it to them. They never once mentioned the Earth is 6,000 years old. They didn't start talking about humans riding dinosaurs like it was the Flintstones. But they did everything they could to discredit Darwin's theory of evolution, which, yes, where we came from, blah, blah, blah. That itself was theory. But, like, evolution, I would say, evolution in itself was not a theory.
Right.
Like, it's how that process
happened
in terms of the details of what evolutionized from what
right.
was the theory part. Now, this is hard because I do believe in intelligent design. I'm not a creationist.
No.
I'm a HEKA-TEA witch, but I do believe in divine intercedence and formication. Like, I do believe that HEKA-TEA is the creatrix of the universe, the great Pamenter. Like, I do believe she is she who has always been. Like, I do. But I also believe in evolution, and I believe that humans and dinosaurs were millions, if not billions of years apart from each other. They were not hanging out together. No one was playing fetch with Dino. Like, for me, the science gives physical description, physical analysis, physical explanation for how these things exist.
Right.
And you can sit there if you're like, blah, blah, no, that's wrong. Well, I'm going to say to you, if you believe in your deity, whatever deity it is you follow, whatever goddess, god you follow, whatever Mother Earth Gaia, whatever you call her, him, whatever, you do believe that they created, that they are life, or is that just symbolism for you? So I guess that's the question: is how deep does your faith run?
Right.
Would then determine how you see that. For me, I do not deny science, evolution, anthropology in any way, shape, or form, because my faith also doesn't contradict anything.
No.
And even the myths of, whereas the Christians are like, oh, the Earth is 6,000 years old, 6,500 years old now, right? You go back to the ancients, they're like, their myths are like, their stories are like, and we're already talking 6,000 years ago, and their myths are like, 10,000, 20,000 years ago, this happened.
Exactly.
Even they acknowledge, like, the Earth has been going for a really fucking long time. Like, they didn't totally understand what dinosaurs were when they found the bones, but they knew they were creatures bones of creatures that had walked and died out long before they came about. Like, these are things they knew. So, science, the theory of evolution, it doesn't conflict with my intelligent design aspect of my faith. No. Like, it just doesn't. Like, it just reinforces it. Because I can look to all of these things and say, well, this is a physical manifestation of her. So, so it was hard because of that. On one hand, you can kind of see their arguments but then they just, go into complete, like, well, the science isn't correct. It doesn't agree on anything. And there's no proof of anything. And when they would interview these scientists, you weren't getting a full interview, and they were editing it in ways, and not even very successfully. Like, every time they interviewed them, I still was like, I still believe the scientists. Yeah. Like, they didn't convince me, but they tried to edit it in a way that made them sound like they didn't know what they were talking about, and that they contradicted themselves on things. And they just... It's getting weirder. They didn't even talk about paganism. They, like, briefly said, which, again, we just basically confirmed, which is they said, like, oh, evolution was already, the idea of evolution in one form or another was already prevalent in the pagan world, and in paganism, and different pagan beliefs for centuries, for thousands of years, in pre-Christian times. Yes, this is true. In pre-Christian times, they were like, there were theories of there were already ideas of evolution.
Yeah, I mean... I honestly, I felt like this episode was a little pointless.
It was reaching.
Just due to the fact that this series is about the quote-unquote pagan invasion, and there was almost no reference to how this connects to paganism throughout any of the episodes. So for me, I just kind of felt like, why is this included? Why is this relevant?
Yeah. Because we had to promote a documentary connected to a book by Carol Matriciana. Yes. So in this, there was clips from a documentary film. We are pretty sure it was narrated by a younger Chuck Smith Sr. Called Evolutionary Conspiracy. Evolution Conspiracy. The Evolution Conspiracy. Yes. And we were like, this is suspect. So Avan did her research, put a research cap on, and found that this was another Jeremiah Films production. Yes. And we couldn't want for sure about Chuck Smith, but we were pretty sure by the sound of it. And he was a younger of him, did show up in it.
Yes, that's true.
And in her research, she discovers, there was also a book by the same name by Carol. Old faithful.
She just keeps on spouting.
I know. She's got a book on any subject. If it's bigoted, Christian, conspiratorial, and crazy, Carol Matriciana's got a book about it.
Exactly.
Surprised Dave Hunt didn't show up. We were missing some of our regulars.
This might have been the first Daveless episode.
I guess evolution is an occult. I'm surprised they didn't come with the angle that it is.
Like, I know.
They made it kind of sound like it. They were like, the scientists are joined in this like cabal of evolution. So I'm actually surprised they didn't bring Dave Hunt in.
I'm surprised about that too.
That leaves us finally with Witchy Media Review. For this Witchy Media Review, we selected an interesting gem.
Yes.
We have this playlist, many a playlist saved on YouTube of just like obscure occult, witchcraft, specials, documentaries, interviews, etc. And we just kind of rouletted and picked one. This one was called The Occult, An Echo from Darkness. Supposedly dated coming out in 1970, but that would be impossible because they showed footage in a cult shop and it showed like astrological forecast booklets for 1972. So at the very least it was 72 or 73.
Right.
This was weird.
Very.
It was like Look Into My Eyes, where that documentary film from A24 we reviewed a couple episodes back about psychic mediums, how like we had no idea who anybody was, no names, like there was no, everyone they interviewed in this film, which was put on by clearly like a church, it was a church endorsed film, propaganda, and it was highly misinformed, horribly misinformed.
Awful.
But yeah, it was an interesting film. They showed a picture of Pazuzu, a statue of Pazuzu, as you can see here, and they said that it was Baal, but they pronounced it Baal, which I guess is kind of a common. No, it's just not. It's Baal, and it's spelled with two A's for fuck's sake. B-A-A-L.
Exactly.
There's like
there's no other way to pronounce
there
that.
Isn't.
Really.
So there was one fabulous witch who
he was great.
He was amazing, clearly homosexual. He kind of made you think of Myrtle Snow.
Oh yeah, he kind of did.
He had like a Jesus hair though, like, and
yes.
he had a beard, and he had like this fabulous pipe, and he was like dressed in this like checkerboard herringbone like robe, dress, cape thing, drapery thing. It was fabulous, and then he had like brown like leather like riding boots on, like equestrian boots, and he was just fabulous.
He's great.
And he was like knowledgeable as fuck about witchcraft, magic, how it operates, how witchcraft and religion operate and work together and how there's witchcraft in various religious operations, including Christian ones. It was just, he was awesome.
Oh yeah, he was great. He was my favorite part of the entire film.
Yeah. Otherwise, we had some white witches. They did record a black mass, which if any of you are familiar with any of these type of occult documentary type footages of things from 70s, 60s and 70s, then you know the black masses. And I think still are, but were very theatrical back then. Yeah. They would usually light the rooms with like red light bulbs or one single red light. They would often, dress in ceremonial robes. It would be a whole procession. Very intense.
Yes.
They did show some footage of a black mass. And there were some interesting, there were some things that you're like, okay. But all in all, it was crazy weird. There was like a Tom Selleck type Christian who was the narrator, the host, and
he was entertaining, I will say.
Yes, but all in all, I'm giving this a new moon.
Same.
It was total garbage.
Yeah, it was. At one point I was gonna go maybe first quarter, but then at the end there was just this very blatant propagandizing of the whole thing. Yeah. Like you can avoid
witchcraft,
dangerous acts of witchcraft through Jesus Christ, and then you see the sunlight in the trees. It's just
God-shaped holes, God-shaped vacuums again.
Yeah. So at that point, I think it dropped down to a new moon.
I may give it a waning crescent, only for the fabulous gay male witch of awesomeness.
Yes. If you are older and you're watching this, we love you.
We love you. We adore you. Hopefully, the HIV/AIDS virus did not get you and take you from us.
I mean, if you're older, obviously.
Right.
If older.
But if you are still around, or if you have passed either way, blessed be to you, and thank you always and forever. Whatever your name was, because we
can't name you in our thanks.
Because they never told us what your name was. So
hopefully,
but you are a hero. You were a hero.
Hopefully, we'll see a comment, and he'll be like, "My name is Bob Tomlinson."
Right. With that being said, that ends another episode of Spelling the HEKA-TEA with Marcus and Evan. You know the drill. If you like what you see, you enjoy the episode, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Reach out to us. Let us know what you think. We want to hear from you guys.
Definitely.
And until then, witches, remember, broomsticks, not just for cleaning.